second. Okay. Yes. Hello, everyone. Yes.
So it's about if I have glass serving dishes, let's say bowls and platters and like a cake stand, could I use it for dairy and milky? We're not talking about a hot food. We're talking about serving, let's say a Caesar salad or a salad that has something dairy in it.
Or a cheesecake on a
like milky cake. Or dips, let's say cream cheese that came straight from the fridge into a little serving glass bowl.
Yeah, for sure, halachically it's permissible because it's all cold. Had it been hot, Sephardim would still allow. Sephardim allow any glassware to be used for both milk and fleshik, even boiling hot, and even just 5 minutes apart. As long as they clean them very well, and there's no actual food left on the surface. According to Sephardim, the glassware does not absorb any taste because it's so smooth. The glass is so condensed and smooth that nothing gets absorbed, so that you can use it. I was shocked when I heard this for the first time that they actually do it. I learned the halacha, but I wasn't aware that they actually practice that way. They can use a Pyrex pan to make a lasagna in the oven when it's 180 to 200 degrees Celsius, and rinse and wash it very, very well. And immediately after that, make chicken or meat in the same Pyrex pan in a fleshik stove, the oven. Yeah, it's really wow. I would never believe that. But that's done by the most Haredi element Sephardi people.
Pyrex is the same quality as glass in that respect.
Yes. It's considered glassware. Yes. I'm not talking about porcelain. Porcelain is something else because that's made from clay and just covered, has a coating on it. Right. That's problematic, even though Rav Yosef had it once. He had a tshuva first to begin with, who was more lenient even for that, and he felt that that's glassware because it's coated with very smooth, like glass type material. But then he changed his mind. So for porcelain, that definitely should not be used for both milk and fleshik hot foods. Now going back to but Ashkenazim don't allow hot foods, fleshik and milk, on the same glass tray, bowl, whatever, because according to Ashkenazim, it does absorb. So you need to do hagalah, and that's like any other material. But when you talk about cold, then even Ashkenazim would allow. The issue is, most can speak about not from halachic point of view, pure halachic point of view, but from the point of view of getting used to separating all our utensils as separate for milk and fleshik. It's more, makes things more smooth, more easier to cope with, because if we start mixing the two, then you may by mistake use a fork, spoon, serving utensil of any type, which is metal, also mistake it and use it for both because it fits best for this bowl or whatever. So purely halachically, no problem. It's just more like the spirit of Torah is to make a total separation between the two. But definitely, if you need it and it's what's most comfortable, makes it most easy for you to use. Even if you had to use it for cold flesh, you can use it for cold milk and vice versa. Definitely okay. Just if possible.
What would be considered, like, would warm things be under hot? Is there like a degrees that separate it from being?
Yeah, sure.
Not
sure. There is the degree that we spoke about by Hilchos Shabbos. It's equal to Hilchos Basar B'Chalav also. The idea is Yad Soledet Bo. From the point of Yad Soledet, that's when it starts absorbing the taste. It gets absorbed into the material of utensil. That's 45 degrees Celsius. So but that's already very tricky, because how do you measure at each given moment what degrees are there. I would say that unless it's room temperature, lukewarm, that's fine. But anything above that, that's already getting quite dangerous because, you're getting close to the point where it may absorb and then it could be a real problem. So
would putting a serviette on top of, let's say, on top and then putting something warm, or if let's say I take you have the glass platter, but I warm up a quiche and put quiche on a plate, on a milky plate, not directly on a tissue. We're talking about like a serviette, folded nice serviette. Is that any different, or that would also fall under the similar?
The second case you asked, that's totally fine, because when it's on a plate, even though it's a milky plate, the plate itself isn't the milky food. It just had absorbed once upon a time from a hot milky dish. It absorbed the taste from the milky, and on top of a serviette, on top of a napkin, that's definitely good enough to differentiate between the milky food and the platter. That's fine. But your first question about covering the glass bowl with a serviette and then serving on it something warm or hot, that isn't enough. That's not sufficient enough, because there the food itself penetrates, the taste of it penetrates through the serviette into the bowl. Because there you're talking about the actual food on the serviette and not the plate. Milk plate, it's on the serviette, it's on the platter, glass platter. So your second question, your second situation is allowed. You can also cover it by tin foil if you'd like, and then put milchik plates, milchik food, even though the platter is normally used for fleishik food. So that's totally fine.
Would cling film be also sufficient?
What is that?
Cling film, like plastic ceramic wrap.
See-through plastic.
Yeah, but that you can't put that on warm. That melts on the warm, no?
I mean, warmer than 45 degrees, let's say. We're not talking about boiling hot, but warmer than 45.
Ceramic won't melt?
They're not ceramic.
Some of them you can put in a microwave and they're fine.
Yes?
Yeah.
So you're talking about, it's not that sticky plastic stuff that you cover.
It is just, a lot of it is actually microwavable and it withstands higher heat that we expect.
Wow, I never knew that. We use it just for cold, like salad bowls or hugels to cover the bowl.
Like this.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So that goes on a platter and it doesn't melt?
I wouldn't put it on a platter. I'd be scared.
Yes.
No, I don't mean platter. I mean like a serving plate. Let's say I'm putting a warm quiche.
Yeah.
And
to a glass serving plate, and it's a hot, warm quiche. No, that won't be enough.
5 degrees.
No, it's very thin. No, it penetrates. Also, the poskim speak about baking paper that doesn't do the job either. You do baking paper between the food. The moment the food is warm, it penetrates through all these covers into the bowl that's holding it. So warm food, you have to use actual milchik bowls or fleishik bowls separately, unless you're Sephardi, and then you can use it all mixed. But for Ashkenazim, all these ways of covering, maybe, I would say 2 layers of tin foil, but that's usually not presentable to bring to the table to cover tin foil. 2 layers of tin foil could be sufficient enough. But this ceramic wrap or baking paper or serviette, those aren't enough. They have holes in them. They're not solid and dense material that wouldn't allow the taste to penetrate. Even one layer of info would not be enough.
Thank you. And how would you go about washing something that had a cold, milky stuff? And let's say you want to obviously wash it under warm water, which would be over 45 degrees or so.
You think so? You would wash your dishes with over 45 degrees? That's
Really boiling.
yeah.
No, it's hot.
Yeah, it's very hot. It's very hot. Even mummy power doesn't help in this case. But even so, that's already irui mikli rishon, meaning you're pouring over the milky stuff that's on the plate. You're pouring over it boiling water, and the underneath is cold. The surface itself of the food is cold, so that's okay, even if it's 45 degrees and up, because we hold that kedei klifai does absorb. In such a case, the outer layer, the very outer layer of the bowl does absorb. It's called kedei klifa, like a thin outer layer of the glass does absorb when you pour boiling water over cold surface which has milk on it. So
what about putting it in the dishwasher?
Dishwasher is okay. Dishwasher is okay because you have the soaps, detergents that go in, and then
You've just used it for, let's say you've just used it for milk, you can put it in the milk dishwasher, and then you've just used the glass for meat, all cold. Can you put the same glass in the meat dishwasher?
Yes, that's okay. Because of what I said now, that the detergents in the dishwasher, the soap and all that kills the taste. It becomes tam lifgam, and tam lifgam isn't really milky or meaty. It's nothing. It's not a normal taste anymore. But when you wash it just with water, by the way, if you would put soap for Leah's question before, if you're washing it in the sink under the faucet with boiling water, if you would first pour soap over the dish or bowl or whatever with the remaining milk stuff on it, and then pour the boiling water on it, that could be better, because then again, it has that soap that ruins the taste of the milky stuff, and then it's tam lifgam, and then it's okay. But again, you're talking about a case where you're pouring just the liquid soap, so maybe there'll be a spot which didn't get the soap and it only got absorbed by the water, hot boiling water. I wouldn't do such a thing. I would use warm, but not hot water, not very hot water. I would use lukewarm or cold water to rinse. If you'd like, again, if you keep it always milchik, then you can use whatever you'd like. That's why before, that switching from milk to fleshik, even though it's only cold, here, that proves it, that then when you have to wash it and you're using boiling water, very hot water, then you get into trouble, because it gets absorbed one time with the milk, one time with the fleshik. That's why I said best to keep totally separate utensils for this and for that. But again, if you're in great desperate need to use the one that you prefer and enjoy better, you can do so, but then be aware that when you wash it, don't wash it with hot water. Wash it with lukewarm or less. I think that's the final conclusion. But the dishwasher is okay because of all the detergents that come in. Also, there's a point there that the water could be not only 45 degrees, it could be much hotter in the dishwasher. So it could maybe do hag'alah. It could even do the actual koshering as it's inside the dishwasher. If it's 100 degrees boiling water, then it's even doing hag'alah. Whereas in the faucet, you never get to 100 degrees. The water from the faucet even.
I don't think it goes up. Mine goes up to 75.
Oh yeah, you know so?
It says it on the, you can choose the cycles. There's a regular 55 and a 75.
Up to 75.
Like
So
the chilled dish.
so you can't use it for as hag'alah. No, it doesn't work as hag'alah. Hag'alah needs to be 96 degrees.
Yeah,
No, it doesn't go that high. So at least the soaps there make it tam lifgam, and then it's okay. They won't absorb the meaty or milchik taste because of the soaps. That's okay. Okay, those are the questions. Okay, terrific. Going back to Hilchos Shabbos, beforehand, I'll just say very, very, very quick, because we're up to a day before Lag BaOmer. It's a very quick, I think, sharp idea, like a nice thing that happened at Purim. Nothing happens by chance. But it's very beautiful that we count. I haven't counted tonight yet. My Sfiras Omer. I'm going to a 10 o'clock minyan, so I won't say the count of tonight. But the gematria of the count of tonight is the Hebrew word for heart. Okay, that's what we're counting tonight, and we're left with 17 more days till the end because it's 49 total. 49 minus heart in Hebrew gematria makes it 17. Now 17 gematria in Hebrew is tov. The word tov, tet vav bet, is 17. So make out of two words is good heart, and that's exactly Lag BaOmer. In between is Lag BaOmer. Why? Because the whole point of the mourning that we mourn till Lag BaOmer is because Talmidei Rabbi Akiva lo kibdu ze et ze. They didn't have a good heart. They weren't friendly. They weren't nice to each other. So the way we're mitaken, the way we correct their ways, is by having a good heart, is by acting nicely to everyone. So the Lag BaOmer signifies, and that's when we stop mourning. After Lag BaOmer is finally the kids can hear music, and we could also, but kids are more tuned in. So after Lag BaOmer, we could do many things. We can take haircuts, we can shave. After Lag BaOmer, almost everything goes away, except for weddings, which Ashkenazim still continue not to have weddings till Rosh Chodesh Sivan. But in general, the mourning finishes, and that's so the hint to that, and the beautiful gematria that turns out within that, in the midst between those that day before and after, is good heart in opposite order. In Hebrew, we say the opposite order. So that's the answer to how come we stop mourning, because we learn the lesson of these days till Lag BaOmer. We learn the lesson not to behave like they did, rather to correct their ways and have a good heart.
Can I ask an Omer
Yeah,
question?
sure. Yes.
I forgot it was the Omer, and we were listening to music in the car.
Uh-huh.
So I plan. Usually I don't listen to music for the whole Omer because otherwise
Oh, yeah,
I don't
even
really
after-
feel like it. I don't really feel like it's happening. Anyway, but I also forgot, and I bought Ella a skirt.
What did you do?
I bought Ella a new skirt.
Oh, a skirt.
And
No,
she-
that's
and
not
she
a problem
wore
at
it.
all. Not a problem at all.
She's allowed to wear it in the Omer. I thought,
Yes.
so
No, it's not the 3 weeks.
Oh, okay.
People mistake the Omer for the 3 weeks. No problem whatsoever. Especially, I'll tell you even further. If it's something that's a weekday skirt,
Yeah.
then you don't say Shechianu. You're buying something that's a weekly clothes. Only if it's Shabbos stick, special. So if that's in Shechianu, you could even do that in the 3 weeks.
Really?
Not the 9 days. Not the 9 days, but the 3. But from Yudzayin Tammuz till Rosh Chodesh Av,
Yeah.
you can even buy something that's not Shechianu type.
Right.
In the Omer,
Even if it
you
makes
could
you
even
happy.
that. Yeah, because the Mematim B'Simcha is only from Rosh Chodesh Av and onwards. Mishechras Av, Mematim B'Simcha. Only then you shouldn't buy anything new, because that's when you're supposed to be very sad.
Mhm.
But beforehand, it's just a few things that we keep from Shabbat and Tammuz, and that's not one of them.
Okay.
So, but the Omer, you can even buy something that's Shechianu. Mistake it totally. You're allowed to say Shechianu normally on the Omer, in the Omer, including days before Lag BaOmer, and definitely new fruits that come out, seasonal fruits. You can say Shechianu, clothes, everything. It's not a restriction whatsoever. It was lucky for us because we're getting ready for our wedding, which will be in a month exactly from today. Zat Hashem to Dvav Sivan. So the girls and the women of our family are buying all their clothes for the wedding now. So it's lucky that okay. Anyway, as of Sunday, you could do it in any case, but even beforehand, before Lag BaOmer also. Okay, back to Shabbos. So the very last few situations in this chapter of electrical appliances, we're still at that point, at the very, very end of it. Yeah, something. Okay, yeah, here we are. When we visit in the Kotel, some of us may be there for Shavuot, some of us other times, talk about Shabbat and Chag. So even if we're not aware of this, and sometimes we go through metal detectors and cameras that are 24 hours 7 are on, and we go through somewhere, it takes your picture, meaning your picture appears on the video on the screen there. So obviously it's not a problem, but why isn't it a problem? Why isn't it a problem to walk through these things that get activated as you walk through them on Shabbat? You're like taking a picture of yourself or taking a picture of you. So there are various answers for this. We'll soon get to the main one, but first, the most easily halachically calculation answer would be that it's called psikresha de lo nichale b'derabanan, meaning it's all a rabbinic decree altogether because there's no filament bulbs involved in this whole electronic situation. It's only rabbinic. It's the fact that you're making something work, so it's molid, and molid is rabbinic. Then it's you don't intend to take your picture. You don't care. It's not something you need. So but it's a psikresha, meaning it has to happen. When you walk through, it has to take the picture. So it's a psikresha, has to happen. You don't care at all that you don't need it. You're not benefiting from it at all. So it's psikresha de lo nichale in a rabbinic situation, a rabbinic prohibition. All that put together, Rav Ovadia Yosef permits totally. According to the Sfardim, that's not an issue at all. Ashkenazim are still stringent even by psikresha de lo nichale derabanan. Even with all this put together, Ashkenazim prefer not. So what's the answer for Ashkenazi walking through these systems? By the way, it could be also in a private building. They have these buildings, the fancy ones, that have also 24/7. They have the cameras there. So another way of coping with this, Rabbi Yoshiv, actually he requested or demanded that that's how it should function in the Rova, you go to the Kotel, that area, that it's functioning in the way that after a few seconds, it gets erased. It doesn't stay anywhere. It's not in the memory at all. So that's considered lo shel kayama. That's already something that's not there to stay. It's moment.
You don't think they keep that film, like if God forbid there was an incident that they would go back and look at I'm thinking about the Kotel. You don't think that
right.
Film...
I would think that security wise they would need to.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe they have a mechanism.
Maybe
I don't know. That's how he writes
for an
here.
Hour rather than,
right. Maybe for a shorter period of time.
They would like then press a button and it would store it for longer or something. Maybe
could be that
maybe
too.
It's not like seconds. Maybe it's like a number of minutes. So the security people are trained to activate some sort of.
No. I'll tell you what he means here. That it goes away from the screen. That's what he says here. Even if you stay put, you're standing there for a few minutes, it's not going to keep your picture there all the time. It's just to take it and then go into the memory itself. Right, you're right. It goes into the memory, but it's not going to stay on the screen.
Right.
So that's now going into the memory isn't something that you see anymore. It's something electronic. It's not something visible. You can go back and see it later, but it's not something that's tangible, that's there, that's really real. So he calls it k'tiva she'ena shel kayama, which adds another rabbinic step here, because it's not something that's permanent. It's only for a few moments. So trade derabanan, twice derabanan is already allowed, even according to Ashkenazim. It's psikresha de lo nichale. That's what he added to this. But the main answer for all this is what we've discussed several times. The fact that when you walk through, let's say in a street, you walk through a place where a light gets turned on as you approach a certain building or house because of the electric eye that detects that someone's crossing the way there. So we said that Rav Ovadia, who was a very stringent posek, but even he felt that this would be okay, because Rav Ovadia explained that when you're not doing any action, you're just walking. A malacha has to involve an action to create the malacha. Press a button, write, grind. You have to do something that proves that that shows you're valuing Shabbat. But if it's just by walking, even though it's all set to make things happen, but you're not doing any malacha, any action specific to make things work, so that he allowed that. It's based on a whole discussion in the Rashbaran, and we'll go into the explanation, into the source of all this. So same is true here. You're just walking through, and it gets all kinds of things happen. That's not considered a malacha, even though you know for sure it's going to happen, and even if it would be in your interest, it would not be a problem, unless you made it for yourself to benefit from. Then he said it's not allowed. Like if you have in your own private home light that turns on when you come close to the building, to the home, that's not allowed to leave it going on Shabbat, even though it's the exact same thing. You're not doing any action, you're just walking. But since you've set it yourself for it to work and for it to benefit from, he said that's a violation of the atmosphere of Shabbat. Ziluta de Shabta, not a violation of a melacha. But in this case, you didn't set up the cameras in the Rova next to the hotel. You don't care less, you're just walking. That's not an issue, and that's the main answer for all this.
When you were talking about a security light, if you had one that was affected by the people that walk past your house, but not necessarily on your property, you're living in Israel, so the people walking past your home are going to be Jews.
Camera? Yeah.
And the light is coming from your house, but it's affecting the road. Does that make sense? Like, it's activated from the street.
People who just walk by?
Yeah. Is that allowed? But it kind of illuminates your property.
Your yard?
Kind of prevent people thinking that they're
for that reason. For security reasons, you want the light to turn on so that they'll be afraid to do anything.
England have got a light, and their house isn't like fenced off. It's kind of the front garden is like exposed.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I think they all do. I mean, they don't all have lights, but they're not
but
behind the
not
fence. It's like a private road. It's not like crime-ridden area, but they have like lights on their house that were affected by people who walk on the streets.
For them to not to feel they can do things, like they're spotted, sort of. Yeah. Right, like shops have that also. Some stores keep their light 24 hours so that people shouldn't steal anything.
24 hours. This is
it just gets turned on when you go by.
Even if it's motion not on the property itself.
Right. So for the people, the strangers who walk by, it's okay because they didn't do it for themselves. Right. But how do you get into the house? Because you're benefiting the light. Right. If it's in the backyard, then it's okay because they may walk back, may pass there. You don't have to go past them.
Right.
So has to be that you're not benefiting, but if they're caught by doing so, that's okay. You're not making them stumble on a malacha. Okay. Now, there's another interesting, these are all very modern situations which technology has advanced so much that we have all these questions now. There is such a thing that when you shut all the trisim in the room, it mainly is good for bedrooms. When you shut all the trisim, automatically the light goes on because the room detects it's dark in the room, so you need light, so light goes on automatically. And the opposite also, when you lift up the trisim in the morning and sunlight comes into the room, so light goes off. Because again, it detects that it's not necessary for it to be on. So Shabbat, obviously you can't do either way. You can't dim the room, darken the room, because that will cause the light to go on. And you can't brighten the room in the morning, allow the sun to come in, because then the light will go on. It doesn't matter that it's a little bit indirect. You're not turning on or off the light, but you are doing an action here by lifting up the trees or bringing it down that activates the light or closes or shuts it off. That's direct enough to be considered turning it on and off directly. That's where the way Shlomo Zalman also defined the light in the fridge. When you open the door, the light goes on. If it's on a weekday, he defined that as actually directly turning on the light because there's no knob, no other device to turn it on besides opening the door. So here also, the only way it goes on and off is by lifting the trees or turning it down or bringing it down. So that's not allowed in Shabbat. What you could do if you're stuck in a room that you forgot to deactivate before Shabbat, and that's the type of room that you're living in, that you have for a bedroom that you have. So you could, before you shut the trisim, you can cover the ray, the sensor. Thank you, the sensor, so that keeps to the same, it doesn't realize as if that you've switched now the situation to brighten or darken the room. So if you cover the sensor, then you can open and close everything as usual. Okay. Oh, now this is also very interesting. That many of us have air conditioning. So if the air conditioning is on, it's on a certain temperature. You set it for, let's say, 20 degrees Celsius. So it should be comfortable in the house, not too hot, not too cold. Now, what it does is it has a thermostat on the machine itself, which is always measuring the temperature in the room. And if it gets too hot, it starts working, the engine starts working, and starts cooling off the room. If it's cold enough, it stops working. So that's okay when you're in the room and it just goes on and off on its own, that's fine. But can you enter the room? Because the moment you open the door to enter the room, you're allowing warm air to come in. If now the temperature is close to, if it's now working, right now the AC is working, so you're only extending the time that it's going to stay on. That's okay, because we said to extend something is okay. If it's working and to continue for it to continue to work, that's fine. Or if it's off, continue the off is also fine. But if it's not working now because it's cool enough, now you open the door and enter the room, you've brought some hot air from the outside into that room. Now it won't turn on immediately, but it's going to quicken the functioning of the AC, because it's going to be now a little bit warmer than it had you not gone in. So you're making it work earlier. And now we said we're not allowed. We're not allowed.
The same principle, like if I open that door, the air conditioning is there.
Right.
But
exactly. That could bring in hot air. Right. Exactly. So, but it's hard to deal with this, because if it's off, you have to wait outdoors until you hear the engine, the motor working, and then come in, because as it's working already, you're not making it work quicker. You're just delaying the time that it's going to turn off, which is okay.
I have a friend whose daughter does that with their fridge. She'll only open it on Shabbat when she hears the motor running. Right.
That's the more Haredi.
Very.
Right. Strict. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So luckily enough, from Shlomo Zalman didn't think so in both cases, not the fridge and not the AC. In both cases, Shlomo Zalman said, and he proved this from several sources, that what we have here is a combination of sikreisha, because you're opening the door in order to enter the room. You're not intending on the air conditioning to start working. True, you're enjoying it in the end if it starts working, but that's not your intention right now. You want to enter the room. That's it. You want to be inside instead of outdoors. So that's sikreisha, not intended, but it will happen. But besides that, it's grama. It's indirect, because the opening of the door has nothing to do with the work of the AC. It's just that it brings in hot air, which in turn, by the thermostat on the AC, it detects that it's too warm, and then it starts working. So it's indirect and not intentional. Sikreisha b'grama. Those two together, says of Shlomo Zalman, those two allow totally chatchila to be involved in this situation. So if the fridge is not working right now, while you open the door of the fridge, if it's not a Shabbos mode that completely is completely automatic, doesn't it all calculate the heat or anything? That's how we should have our fridges today. But the older fridges, they used to work on the thermostat, and you open the door, so after a few minutes it started working. That's allowed according to Shlomo Zalman, even if it's not working currently, because it's sikreisha, grama, both combined together, allowed lechatchila. Now, this is interesting that some fridges or freezers, we have those standing freezers, those big standing freezers. Some of them, what they have is a light or a beep sound that turns on if the door is open for too long. If you have the door open for a minute or 2 minutes, it starts beeping or a light turns on. So this should have been the same idea. It's sikreisha. You're not intending on the beep to go on or light to go on. You don't care about that. It just happens unintentionally, but it must happen. So it's sikreisha. Bigrama, it's indirect. It's not happening right now. It's a delay. So it should have been the same. But Phil Malka here explains something very interesting to differentiate between two cases. He says some of the fridges that have this beeping sound, or freezers, they're activated exactly the same second, a moment after you've opened the door, meaning it's set to work within a minute, exactly a minute. The moment it's open, right? Oh, so it times itself the moment you open it, which means you've activated something on your trying. So it doesn't matter that it's indirect, because that's not the issue. The issue is that you made something work now, a computerized system that starts working now, right? He says that's not good. But if it's something that beeps each time a different timing, that means that it's not getting activated the moment you open the door. Rather, it's when it gets too warm inside, let's say. And that can happen once after 2 minutes, once after half a minute, once after 5 minutes. That varies. So if it's that type of fridge that the light or beep sound happen at different times after you open the door, then you're allowed to open it. Because that means that it doesn't start activating something right now. Rather, it's measuring the temperature all the time, which doesn't happen necessarily when you open the door. At that moment, it happens all the time. It's measuring temperature. So that's okay. So you have to test your. I actually had this issue before this last Pesach. A family asked for some help with their fridge. It had to do with the cleaning of it and things like that. But then I noticed that when you open the door in their fridge, after a few moments, it starts beeping. So I told them, besides the Pesach cleaning, you had to make sure that Shabbat, the regular Shabbat, even in Chag, so we tried a few times. We measured each time we opened to see when it starts beeping, and it wasn't at the same time each time we opened the fridge. So I told them this type of fridge you can use because it's not activating anything immediately. Okay. Last points of this chapter. Yeah, so a good time. Okay. Yeah, this is also interesting. It sounds crazy, but it's interesting to find out how come. If let's say we're giving a shiur or discussing something, can one tape the shiur on Shabbat? Meaning the tape recorder, you're not pressing a button to start to make it function. It's on all the time. It's taping some. Let's say it's on the Shabbos timer. So at a certain time, it activates itself and starts taping everything that's being said in the room. We'll do that on Shabbat, that you activate before Shabbat, you activate on a timer, and it starts taping at a certain moment, and you start speaking, and then you're taping a shiur on Shabbat. We're not talking about a goy who is taking it, who's, let's say, videoing something that's going on. That's okay. If a goy does that as you're dancing or eating or giving a shiur, then there's nothing that you are doing. He's doing the whole thing, and you're just talking or sitting around or dancing. You don't have to stop him from doing so. It's his malacha, as long as it's not for your benefit, because that we know we can't benefit from the goy doing something for us. But it's for his benefit, and it's not your issue. That's what they did once. I saw an Uman in Rosh Hashanah. There was a guy who was videoing the services there. You got to see it after Rosh Hashanah.
Like
yeah.
the Asian tourist kotel that like
right, exactly. Take film and pictures. You don't they film it right. You don't need to stop them from doing so. It's their malacha, and you're not involved at all. In this case, with the tape recorder taping automatically, so again, you could say it's the same thing because it gets activated on its own by a timer, Shabbos timer, and you're just talking. But still, the poskim don't allow this. I think it's mainly because of Ziluta de Shabta again. The fact that it's a desecration of the atmosphere of Shabbat, not because you see anything, but because after Shabbat, you'll be able to listen and hear what you've said on Shabbat, which isn't Shabbos thing, that it gets taped, and everyone knows that it was taped from Shabbat. But besides that, some poskim hold that it's an Issa D'Oraita even. How come? Why would it be an Issa D'Oraita from the Torah level? because it's called metakin mana, because this machine had nothing on it before, and suddenly now it becomes useful because you can hear a shear now, the machine. So it sort of makes it usable, functional, beneficial, which wasn't before. It's a little weird because it's not really creating the machine. Metakin mana is usually to finish building something on Shabbat, building an inanimate object of any type, like finishing the last hammering of a table or a chair or a closet or a computer or whatever. You finish building it. That's metakin mana makir patish d'oraita. You can't do that on Shabbat, even though it's not boneh, because boneh, according to many poskim, is not by lim, by objects, only by building. But makir patish definitely is. But here, the tape recorder itself, for the iPhone that tapes you, is totally finished, complete object. But the fact that it was empty and now it has something in it that can be then benefited from and used, that's sort of like finishing the object. It's like now functional. Before it wasn't functional as if, because it had nothing on it. So some say it's an issue d'oraita. Dafka Shlomo Zalman was quoted to say so. But others say that it's a Rabbanon because of Molid, the famous electronic problem on Shabbat is Molid, that you're creating something new by turning on electricity or by making this tape your shear. Again, it's hard to understand because if it got turned on its own by a timer, the fact that it's taping your shear or your talk or whatever, or singing, it would have taped anyhow whatever is sound in the room. It's not, you're not really activating anything because it's anyway taping the sounds in the room. It's hard to consider Molid. That's why I said you can't really find a substantial, serious problem with this, but it's not Shabbostic to have your
inappropriate because it's going to be used after Shabbat. So it's like you're doing something, you're doing something.
Hachana.
Looks like for the purpose, because the purpose is to listen to it afterwards, because you can have the shiur without the recording. But the recording is only for the purpose of...
Right, but you didn't do anything to record because it's got turned on by a timer.
Right.
So your speech now is for now because people are here listening.
Right.
I would say you're right had you said a shiur in an empty room. No one's listening right now,
right,
and you're only doing it for the sake of after Shabbat. That's the problem of Hachana. Right now, people are listening to your shiur, so it should be okay to teach them now. And the fact that it's being taped, you're not doing any action to keep it for after Shabbat. It's just on it automatically on its own. So there's no achana either. Achana is when you do an action to keep something for later. That's for later on. Okay. Now, another situation which is less relevant in Israel, but in Chutz La'aretz it's very, very relevant. And I understand some Jews, even from Jews, allow themselves to benefit from this point. And that is going on a trolley, I think you call it, like a train, a tram?
Yeah.
Okay, a tram. That's a train that's
on wire.
On wire, right,
Yeah.
exactly, a tram, okay. On Shabbat, which is driven by a goy. Why would that be a problem? Because it's from station to station, not because of the Jew that hops on, is it going to take you specifically to a certain place. It's going from station to station, driven by a goy, for majority of goyim. The ones who benefit mainly are goyim, because the number of Jews in Chutz La'aretz are much less than goyim in most areas in the world. So there's no malacha by the Jew. Even by the Jew sitting in a tram, it doesn't make any more electricity need for using more electricity because it's so heavy and so full of people that one more person doesn't add anything. So no malacha by the person himself. No one doing a malacha for the Jew because it's a goy doing it for other goyim, really. They're the majority, and the minority gets nullified to the majority. So what's the problem of hopping on a tram on Shabbat? Now, of course, you can't pay on Shabbat. That's moktzeh, and to buy a ticket, you can't on Shabbat. But let's say you have prepaid, and how do you have them on you? You could put it place it underneath your shirt or somewhere that's a shino, you're not carrying it normally. That's it. There's no problem. Why should that be an issue? Same is true for a bus, even a regular bus that goes from station to station, driven by a goy. Mainly, majority of passengers are goyim. So you hop on a bus. Of course, again, without paying.
And if the bus has to stop specifically for you?
No, then you cannot, because then he's doing the goy is doing malacha for a Jew.
Right.
But you normally other people use the same, or you can make sure you go off on the station that someone else is going off as well, and then actually have to walk back if it's one station ahead or something, or before. So again, purely halachically, there's no problem with all this, no problem. And I've heard that Jews, even from Jews, sometimes use this because they're far away from shul or far away from an event that's very important for them to go, a brit or bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, and they must get there. So they use this technique. You can't really find a direct issur for this, but this is a very, very, very extreme case of ziluta de Shabbat. Again, the atmosphere of Shabbat is totally shattered and broken to pieces because this is so non-Shabbistic to be on a tram or on a bus on Shabbat, traveling. So there's nothing real about the issur, but it's complete violation of the atmosphere of Shabbat.
Also, you can't guarantee when you're doing that you won't break it somehow.
Why?
Like, for example, I can't imagine nowadays that ticket collection is done any other way other than like zapping with a thing. Or like if you're on the bus and you knock the bell, or like, I don't know, it's like fraught, or you're the only one at the bus stop when you get there. Like, so how do you?
Right, then it's not for you, right? No, then you have to walk away. Then you should walk away.
It's just like fraught though, like imagine setting off for a journey like that and thinking,
yeah, so much pressure. What can I do?
So unlikely that you're not going to break something.
Okay, that's a good point. Good point. But if one wants to take the risk and be strong about it and decide that he won't do anything that's wrong about Shabbat, even a ticket, the punching of the ticket, you're talking about an inspector, right? That comes on to the.
Yeah, they don't punch a ticket nowadays. I mean, I'm ashamed to say I haven't really been on public transport very much.
Yeah, me neither.
I mean, Ella and I went on a train recently.
Yeah.
Everything was, there was no people.
Electronic?
All machines.
All machines?
Yeah, there's no one there. Like they don't.
No, so if you have to stick your ticket into a machine, you can't do that on Shabbat.
Right. And often the machine, our tickets were on my phone. I didn't even have anything.
No, but the phone is booked, so that's right.
Like I can't imagine the situation will extend into the modern age because now everything is done virtually. Like there isn't a card.
And there's always a machine.
Well, there isn't a ticket to hold. Like you just these days we went to Jerusalem and I had to show like a coronavirus declaration. It got sent to my phone. Like and they zap. I don't even know what they did, but they did something with the thing that was on my phone.
Yeah.
There was nothing in my hand. There was no piece of it was all
yes, it's maybe getting more complicated today because you don't have the ticket to show or anything, right? Okay, so that would definitely not be allowed because you can't carry the phone, you can't activate a machine, nothing. Right, that wouldn't work. But if there's some way, let's say by holding on to your Tudat Zehut, which is not Muktzeh on Shabbat, you can hold on to your Tudat Zehut, and by showing it. But then again, you have to show it to a machine, and then you're activating something in the machine. Yeah, you're right. Today, maybe you can't.
Out in the next few years.
Right.
This won't be possible.
Because it's only possible because no longer using that machine, right? But in any case, it's not allowed because it's a severe Zerut. Imagine other Jews seeing a frum Jew sitting on a train or on a bus on Shabbat. They would think, wow, this is allowed, and then they'll go on with paying or they'll go with their car. It creates a total desecration of the Shabbat, very bad. Okay. By the way, I think in this case, rabbis in Chutz La'aretz would tell their congregants, better you not go to this bar bat mitzvah or to shul even, stay home and not use this type of technique, which may not have any desecration of Shabbat, violation of Shabbat really, but just because it creates a very non-Shabbostic atmosphere, it's worse than making the minyan or going to the bris milah or whatever. Okay. This we've covered already. Yeah, this doesn't make a difference. Yeah, this we also covered already. This I think we also discussed once. This is the very last point. So we're finished with this chapter, Baruch Hashem. The last point, I think we discussed this once, is the coolers, cold water tanks where you just press a button, you get cold, nice, fresh water fountain and drink from. So those are allowed on Shabbat, allowed to use because of that same term as we used before by the refrigerator, except for Laura's friend, she may not use this one, but the fact that when you draw water from it, you press on the button, water comes out, so it brings new water into the system and warmer water, and then in time, it's going to activate the motor to cool off the new water that came in. But that's sikresha. Again, it's not your intent at all. You don't care if new water comes into the system. All you want is to drink the water now. So it's sikresha. It has to happen, but it's not, you're not intending it for it to happen. And it's grama. It's indirect. It may happen in 10 minutes, in 15 minutes, in half an hour. You have no idea when. So it's indirect and something that you're not intended. So sikresha and grama together, Shalom allows. So you can use all the coolers in town if you're having a walk. Press the button, use cold water, even though it will activate the motor to cool off the water sooner than it would if you hadn't used it, but it's still okay because of the reason we said before, unless if by pressing the button, a light goes on, like some of them have these red or green lights to show that it's working or not. So they're problematic, even though it's also only a rabbinic because it's an LED. It's not a filament bulb anymore. We don't use those anymore. And it's psikresha and lichale, you don't care about it, but it's still psikresha and one rabbinic psikresha that according to Ovadia would be okay, according to Ashkenazim not. So if you have a light going on, then you can't use them. Okay, so that's it for this chapter. Baruch Hashem. Begin the next, just a few minutes. We have 4 or 5 minutes. So let's do the beginning of the next chapter. The next chapter is actually random situations which have to do with Chilul Shabbos. Mainly situations of Chilonim who may not keep Shabbat and then had to interact with them, or situations where we need to validate the Shabbat for pikuach nefesh reasons, or whatever, all kinds of random cases of Chilul Shabbos. Can we or can we not do the action that violates? It's a short chapter. The next following one will be Borer, which is going to be a very, very big chapter, and most probably the most important of Chilul Shabbos.
Do you think next lesson we'll be able to finish the small chapter? Because maybe I will start advertising again for the Borer part.
Yes. Okay. So I didn't hear the question, the beginning of the question. Do I think?
Sorry, do you think that we'll be able to start Borer, not the next class, the class after? Is there enough information for the pre-Borer one?
Yeah, right. No, so first of all, good you're asking. I forgot to mention this. Next week, I will probably not be able to give shir at all because both on Tuesday and Wednesday, I have 2 weddings to officiate at, Baruch Hashem. So it's both Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Just one's getting married Tuesday night after Tzeit, so it's Rosh Chodesh Sivan, and one Wednesday late afternoon before Shkia, so it's also Rosh Chodesh Sivan. They both captured Rosh Chodesh Sivan, these 2 weddings. So, which means including Wednesday, which is far, the Wednesday one is far from here. It's in Me'arot Beit Guvrin. I was never there for a wedding. It's in the caves of Beit Guvrin.
I love it though.
For a wedding? Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh, wow.
Really incredible.
Yeah, he says it's unbelievable.
It really is.
They set up tables like
It's
in a cave.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's like incongruous to
believe.
see like fine dining in the middle of like,
Yeah,
this brown
of desert, right? Unbelievable. It's probably very costly to do such a thing because it's a whole
family member of Matthew's, a religious wedding.
I wasn't.
But I don't even think we went to the chuppah, but there was we didn't go to the chuppah because it was an alternative chuppah and Matthew was scared. We
Right.
asked to participate.
Yeah.
So we said there was traffic, but it was kosher, but it was it was bizarre. Like these tablecloth tables in
nowhere,
mountains, in the
middle of
rocks.
nowhere,
Yeah,
wilderness. It's
yeah.
unbelievable. So that's one. So Wednesday, and then so Tuesday, Wednesday are caught, and Thursday will probably be the day that I'll be learning with someone. It could work out on Thursday evening, but I think it's not the best for you women preparing for Shabbat. We'll discuss, Leah will discuss next few days, tomorrow, the next day, to see if we can anyway have a shiur, but it seems like we may not be able to have one next week. The following week, there's another one. It's I guess wedding time now. Another wedding that Wednesday, but this one I'm available Tuesday, which is actually Isru Chag. It's Motzei Isru Chag. It's the day after Shavuot night. So if it's fine for you women, then it's okay for me. So I had to discuss with Leah all these different options. And the following Wednesday is our wedding, a Teretz wedding. So I'm sure not. And I'm sure not the days before. So that's a canceled week. So in 2 weeks.
What about 4 weeks from then? Will you have Sheva Brachot on Wednesday? Because it will be probably the last one.
No. It's going to be past because it's Wednesday before Shkia, the wedding. So Wednesday at 8:30 of the following week will be already the 8th day. So no Sheva Brachos there. No, that should be fine. We'll have to discuss these coming up weeks. Baruch Hashem, all for smachot, but we have to discuss how to work this out. Wait, sorry, I skipped a week. Sorry. Next week, I was wondering how is it so close. Next week, it's okay. Wednesday next week is totally fine. That's as usual. Okay. The following Wednesday is the one that we have 2 weddings. The following is another wedding, and the following is our wedding. So next week is still totally as usual. So let me see. This chapter includes 18 discussions, short discussions. I would say on average, that would take us twice to finish this chapter. So next week is once. The following probably not. The one right after Shavuot maybe yes, and the following not. So I would say the week after our wedding will be the first time we'll start Borer. Understand? That's going to be Kafbet Sivan, which is June 2nd. June 2nd, I would say, could be a safe start Borer. Until then.
So May the 5th, we have shiur. May the 12th, no. May the 19th, no. May the 26th, no. And May the 2nd, the 1st.
And June 2nd, yes. Right.
Okay. So, but you said we need 2 lessons. So that would be
so the 5th. May 19th, we should be able to have May 18th. If it's good for you women.
I can't do Tuesday evenings, unfortunately.
You can't at all Tuesday evenings. And Shavuot before. As far as I'm concerned, Thursday evening is also okay.
Okay, I'll put out on the group the 20th of May.
So we'll cancel next week as usual, cancel in 2 weeks. And the third week we'll do hopefully May 20th. Then we'll cancel the week after that. And then we'll have this back to normal on Wednesday, the June 2nd. Exactly. That should be our calendar times from now on. So then we have twice till June 2nd. And June 2nd, we should be able to start Borer. Right. We've done a little bit of Borer, but not as a full chapter. We discussed it like here and there randomly. Yeah. This will be in great detail. Okay. Very good. So we'll stop at this. A whole new topic.
Thank you very much.
Shabbat Shalom.
Very welcome. Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Bye-bye.